Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 16. The main focus for today will be on the healthcare. As it turns out, they didn't change the recipe for plastics, so it will be a relatively straightforward process setting up the first pass at the production chain. Just keep in mind that what we end up with today will very likely going to be replaced at some point. We only needed it to get started, and once it becomes inadequate, we will build a more final setup somewhere else. Apart from that, we will also get started on forestry, since we are getting close to completely deforesting the accessible parts of the island, and we will also continue mucking around with the retaining walls. Also, we will set up the first purely luxury item production in the form of furnitures. That should keep the people happy, generating more unity for us. Before we get started, if this is not your first video from this channel, you already know what to expect. If you want to be kept up to date, please consider subscribing, and if you like what you see, leaving a like will also help letting me know what to focus on. But enough talking, let's get into it. Let's start by checking how the coal mine is doing. We are past the ramp dig-in at this point, so the machine should be hard at work on shaving off the top of the deposit by now. And indeed they are. We are back up to level +1, and we need to keep an eye on their progress. The reason why we are back up here is to ensure that we dig out a wide enough rim around the deposit, so we can add retaining walls. For that, we need to periodically add more and more small designations. As for the iron mine, we should sort out the mistake I did in the last episode. I placed the walls on level 3, instead of 1, so we need to replace them with the appropriate mining designations, and then we can move on to placing the walls again. Basically, we just get rid of the walls, and extend mining by a single tile. We can also give an order to one of the excavators to focus on digging dirt, so the job gets done faster. So, about that healthcare thing I've been talking about. Right now, the amount of corn we grow is just about enough to satisfy the needs of the town. That leaves nothing for making ethanol. Before we expand the farms more, we could also cut back on potato production. We don't need that many since we introduced corn into the town diet, and it will also help us cut back on fertilizer usage. So, ethanol is made from fermenting corn mush. That's pretty easy. But, we are not making enough extra from the farm to satisfy the amount needed. I suppose we don't really need these groundwater pumps. Sure, they might be handy when it comes to emergencies. But I think having another farm in their place might be a better use of space. Since the old water connection was being done right next to those pumps, we need to add another way for them to get the water they need. After sorting out the pipe directions, we should be good. What could be considered at this point is the upgrading of the main bus water pipe to level 3. That's the main artery of water on the island, so it wouldn't be the worst idea to upgrade it. Anyways, time to add the second corn farm into the mix. We will keep the target fertility lower than we had it before, and increase it if necessary. But to be able to tell if we need to, we will need to get everything ready, and let things run for a while. And after that, we can get started on the actual production buildings. First, we need a mill to turn the corn into corn mash. That's what will go into the fermentation tanks. We also need to add water to the process. Well, in that case, maybe we should move it closer to the central water reservoir. Next, the fermentation tanks. It's pretty self-explanatory. The corn mash gets fermented into ethanol. But, we get a bit of animal feed from the mill as a byproduct. I suspect that we might need to start a chicken farm in the near future, so instead of burning it, we will keep a decent amount in a secondary storage, and only burn what doesn't fit into that. You know, I think the healthcare stuff should have first dibs on the corn produced, and only send the leftovers to the town. We can judge if we make enough by monitoring the food consumption in town. Anyways, we don't want this place to get clogged up, so I added a belt balancer to the animal feed, so we can burn what doesn't fit into the storage. And there, we have corn mash. Time to get going on the fermentation. We also need some oxygen for this process, so we need an air separator. Now, the waste gas produced is carbon dioxide, which we can actually get rid of in a completely pollution-free process. And we even have the necessary limestone deposits right next to the setup. I will deal with that once we start scrubbing the exhausts from other places. It might be a bit of an overkill to do for just this single building. What we need next is plastics. I was worried that the recipe might have changed, but no, it's still the same as far as I can tell. We just mix chlorine with either ethanol, or naphtha, in a polymerization plant. And since we have ethanol right at hand, that's what we will go with. As for the chlorine, that's pretty easy. We just push some brine through an electrolyzer, and we get what we need. We can even tap into the pipes going to the evaporation pools at the water desalination plant, so we have pretty much everything we need locally. There. Pure chlorine gas. Let's just hope the devs don't plan on adding pipe ruptures into the game anytime soon. I have a feeling that having a chlorine spill on the island might be bad for the health of the people. And we are getting close to that cluster of trees, so I called the tree harvester back to that place, so it can get rid of it. So, we had two choices to make plastics. Ethanol, or naphtha. The latter would have required a bit of an effort to do, with little benefit to us right now. So I just went ahead, and used the ethanol we made to make it. Maybe one day we will distill the diesel, but today is not that day. We just need to pipe the two liquids we need into the polymerization plant, and the process can get going. Well, that's not how I wanted the pipe to go, but it works, I guess. And we should see plastics piling up in that warehouse. We can move on to the next step. Let's do the sanitizers next. For that, we need a chemical plant, fed with ethanol and plastics. Pretty straightforward. I guess we are lucky that we don't need to grow aloe vera to mix into it. That would complicate things even further. Alright. We need one more thing before we can start making the final product. Medical supplies. That will require steel and plastics. Which means we need to bring in steel by trucks. But first, I took a quick look at the coal mine, and set a couple extra mining designations, so the walls can be placed efficiently. And while I was away, we managed to make a couple units of sanitizers. Good. We only need to build a small warehouse for the steel, and an assembly factory to make the equipment. And at last, we can place the last step, the factory that will combine the medical equipment with the sanitizers, and create the Tier 1 medical supplies. By far the most complex production chain we had to deal with until now. Emphasis on the until now part. All that's left is to build a clinic in town, maybe attach a small warehouse to it to stockpile the supplies, and we are pretty much done. Also, we might want to reorganize things around the settlement a little. We are getting a bit crowded these days. And we are out of workers again. Well, that's unfortunate. But, it's a good excuse to upgrade one of the districts to level 3. Since the last thing we built was the healthcare setup, we will need to wait for the new workers to come into play, and only then will we be able to judge if this setup is enough or not. Right now, the building that is without workers is the actual factory making the medical supplies. So we need to be patient with this. Hey, an accidental pun. Healthcare. Patient. Get it? Yeah, sorry about that. I think we can extend the copper mine a little on this side. There are quite a bit underground we can exploit. And I think we can start expanding the coal mine retaining walls, not too much, just a couple corners will do. Okay, I think it's time to check on the production graphs for the medical stuff. We left it running long enough to judge the effectiveness of it. And that's what I call a healthy looking graph. We are building a stockpile of the stuff quite quickly. At this point, we can safely disable the health boosting edict in the captain's office. To make a bit of room, I decided that we should move the power transformer to some other place around the settlement. It doesn't require any form of direct connection right now, so it can go pretty much anywhere. I also noticed that the ammonia storage started to go down a bit. But at the same time, we had sour water available behind the sour water stripper plant. So it was just a matter of throughput, and adding a second one should fix the problem. Oh, wait. We have two inputs, steam and the sour water. That will require a bit of pipe acrobatics, but I think we can do it. Yeah, that will do. We just switched which port get which input, and it's all working now. I was really tempted to do that main bus rebuilding I teased in the last episode, but it's not a priority right now. While it would look good, it's not critically important. What we can do though is the walls around the iron mine. We have some of the new leveling done, so we can do the edges. But, when I was looking for the retaining walls in the build menu, I did notice that we can build the furniture store in the town now. You know what? The walls can wait a little bit. Let's make some comfort items for our workers. They've been working hard for over 200 years now, they deserve some luxury. First, we build the store itself, so we can check how many furnitures we need per minute. 18.9. That will require 2 factories to be built. This will require wood, steel, and glass. Thankfully, we will unlock settlement recycling in a little bit, so we will be able to reclaim some of the materials we use for this. I really love how easy it is to set up a completely new manufacturing array. Took me about a minute from start to finish. Right now, we can only really belt in the steel from the bus. We don't have the glass or the lumber on it yet, but I suspect we will be able to do one of those pretty soon. Speaking of, I think it's time to get started on forestry. First, we will need a tree planter, so I ordered one at the vehicle assembly. Then, we need a source of tree saplings. That's done through farming. And why not build our first greenhouse for this? I should really upgrade all the other fields to greenhouses soon, but that's a huge investment. Plus I might move farming one day, so I don't want to invest if I'll just regret it later. Unlike the other farms, This one will only get water as an input. I don't think we really need to use fertilizers for this. I did check if we can increase the overall output through green manure, but it only gave us 0.2 extra per minute, so I didn't even bother with it. I do like greenhouses. We can look inside with the free camera, which you can enable with the F11 key by the way. I think the best place for this tree farm will be here, on this plateau we've been deforesting. For starters, I just designated one of the bigger tile cells for this. You know me, I like to use those grid cell borders as a guideline. To do this right, we need a couple of warehouses for this. Small ones to house the saplings, so the tree planter doesn't have to go all the way down to the farm to pick them up, and a big one to store the harvested lumber, which will be pushed onto the main bus later. We can even use advanced logistics connections to only accept these places as the pickup and drop-off points. Although, it seems we will need a second small warehouse. It's the same idea as the mining storages. One of them can interact with the tower, the other one can interact with the free roaming trucks. Only in reverse. We are pretty close to reaching the end of the surface level on the coal deposit we've been using. The other deposit is pretty far into the island, so let's hope that the current one will last us a little longer. I would rather not rely on the overworld mining node just yet. And our tree planter is done. But, it cannot reach the tower, since it's boxed in by belts and pipes. We can give it a way out through the copper belts, I suppose. And it's already hard at work, planting a nice little forest for us. It will take quite a while for these trees to fully mature, but we have time, we are nowhere near done deforesting the island. Also, we might as well assign one of the tree harvesters to the tower. We could have done it at a later date, but I rather do it while I have it in mind. And since the trucks attached to it won't need to go a long way anymore, I think 2 will be enough. They only need to go to the nearby warehouse to drop things off. Now, I am really not familiar with the amount of land we need for this. Might need more, might need less. I like to err on the side of caution, so I gave the project more space, and we can cut it back if it's too much later. I suppose we could also start placing walls around the copper mine now. Once we are dealing with a lot more robust mining equipment, I might do a mega project, and fill in that whole bay in the middle, but we are nowhere near that yet. It's not much, but it's a start. Looking at the food situation in town, I don't think we are making enough corn to satisfy the demand. I didn't do it yet, but I think we will need to increase the production soon. It's amazing how little limestone we've been using in this playthrough. I remember mining out a lot more of that mountain in previous attempts, and we are barely making a dent after the last update. It seems messing with the copper belts while building that ramp reversed one of them. Need to be careful about these kinds of things. And we are completely out of coal. Time to postpone the completion of the ground level mining, and do a bit of work down in the lower levels. Once our reserves are back to normal, we can finish the job. Yeah, that will take care of it. I still left 2 of the excavators a job to dig dirt and stone if they can find any, but the rest will focus on coal exclusively. And we just unlocked settlement recycling. It's basically the same as the old garbage collection building, but instead of waste, it will output scrap. And since we just introduced furniture to the place, we might start seeing glass scrap making its way into the logistics network. We will need to check if our glass-making setup can melt that stuff down, but I always make sure to include the scraps in my furnaces, so we should be okay on that front. Now, I have no idea if this affects the amount of garbage we generate. One would think that giving the people the option to sort their waste would lower the amount of general garbage generated, but I never really tested it. We'll need to keep an eye on that graph to see. And we have a pretty decent sized forest growing in our backyard already. I don't know the ratio between planters and harvesters, so that is another thing we will need to figure out as we go along. We should also continue with the main bus marker at this point. First, we need it to climb up this ramp, so we can continue building it deeper into the island. I suppose we could just cut straight through the forest we're planting. To ensure that the ramp gets extended, we just need to change the mining tower's area of operation a little to cover it. Well, the coal mine is hard at work on refilling the storages. Good thing we caught it in time. I should really go around and set storage alerts to important stuff, like coal, ammonia, iron, copper, pretty much everything. Instead of just setting the storages to be emptied out, or to be kept full, maybe I should get into the habit of automatically setting alerts too. Anyways, I think this is where I will leave things for this video. In the next one, I'm hoping to finish up the coal mine retaining walls on the top level, and then work our way down. I am also tempted to start moving some of the farming to other areas. The place where the old oil distillery was would be a pretty good place for it. Most of the trees have already been cut down there, and at most, we might need to get rid of a couple small dirt hills. Then, we could just belt the food close to the town, maybe even all the way. I think we could make better use of the land where the current farms are, having them there is not really optimal. Plus, we could draw the main bus markers a bit further away from the copper mine that way, which would be kind of beneficial. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and leaving a like would also let me know that this video was worth making. If you feel that it was good enough, and you can afford it, please consider going to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the description, and donate an amount that you feel is appropriate. And if you did like what you've seen, there should be links to some of my other videos and playlists on the screen. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.